What is the magic word count when it comes to writing an effective outreach email or an email to any prospect that is, inbound lead as well? Well, today we're going to tell you. You got to listen to the episode to check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I have the one and only Mr. Jason Kramer coming on the show. Jason and I connected on LinkedIn for a minute now. He's a strong listener, a staunch listener of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. And he runs an organization where they provide aid to sales organizations just like you and me, sales reps, and helping you and your marketing team to be able to work cohesively. You can find more details about them and how they help you to succeed, especially when it comes to the CRM side. They know a thing or two around that avenue. And oftentimes salespeople, we don't necessarily have a hold of the CRM. However, we do have influence. We can give that influence back to our sales leaders. This episode, like any of our episodes, is designed to do two things. One, help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline with quality opportunity and help you to double your close rate. Every tip, every ideas, we're coming back or linking back to that mission and that vision. So if you're looking to improve your close rate, if you're looking for opportunities to build more pipe, this is it. As we dive in, you get a chance to learn a little bit more about Jason. You get an understanding about what he's doing and how he came about this framework. And then we're going to naturally reveal to you I can't tell you, that secret number for that email. Let's dive in. Check it out. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Donald. Great to be here.
Man, I'm looking forward to this, especially when it comes towards this email idea and go to market. Like, so many of us are looking for different ways of how we can maximize our email outreach and to be more effective. And you're going to give us some secrets today. So we're really, really engaged and excited on that. Before we dive in, why don't you take a minute or so and tell us a little bit more about you and your brand and what you do?
Sure. Jason Kramer. I live in New York, the founder of Cultivize, which is my second business. Donald, my background is deep-seated in marketing. The short of it is I got started as a designer, worked in agencies, ran a business for 16 years, and I pioneered the idea of, well, not really pioneered, I should say, really more morphed to the idea of what are people doing with all this marketing effort, and right, what happens after you generate a lead. And so that morphed into me creating Cultivize, where we help nurture and educate leads once they're generated through the sales process, and harnessing the power of CRM, sales tools, and giving sales teams and sales leaders and managers the ability to see what's in the pipeline. And most importantly, Donald, you and I both know, as business owners, making sure nothing falls through the cracks. And that's really what we do in the world of Cultivize, helping strategize, consult, and implement those principles for our clients.
I know exactly where this part, how this ties in, and it's a real life stuff that I've seen with one of our clients. Many of our clients, we've seen this where they get a lot of inbound leads, and the sales leaders get upset because salespeople, marketing get upset because salespeople have all these leads that they need to reach out to, and they're not reaching out to them according to marketing standpoint. And salespeople are reaching out, but they're not getting in touch with those folks. The emails are not landing. Maybe the phone calls, they're not answering the phone, they're not responding to text messages. So there's got to be a better way to do it. So I think this will definitely help some of you out there who are listening, and you're on that same page. And then from the leadership standpoint, for marketing and sales leaders, this will give you some ideas. But there's a particular thing that the sales professional can do. So we're going to try to help both camps tonight, or today. Sure. To this day. What am I doing? Today when we're doing this. Maybe you're listening to this at nighttime.
Maybe.
But we're going to try to help both camps with this. And in particular, we're going to talk about that email count. There's a word count on that. So I want to hear, maybe you give us what that secret is, or you're going to tease us out a little bit more. But I would love to hear how you came to that. Let's tease them. Let's talk about how you came to that, and then tell us what that word count is. Does that sound fair enough?
Sure. Happy to do it.
Yeah.
So we've all received, the recipient end, thousands and thousands of emails, right? In any given, even month, maybe, or year, depending on what you get. And we all know there's tons of clutter out there. So we've been at the email game for over 25 years. And through that time, it's all about trial and error, like anything in life, right, Donald? So it's experimenting, seeing what's working, what's not working. And the reality is, when you're a salesperson emailing, you're emailing two people. You're either emailing a cold person that has shown no interest in your business and you're just trying to get a foot in the door, or it's somebody that's knocked on that door, maybe they downloaded a white paper, they signed up for a newsletter, or they said, hey, Donald, I'd like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. There's two different pathways to that. But like you brought up a good point before about sales and marketing. And what we're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about today is, yes, that word count. We found the magic number, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail, is 75 words is really a
Ooh.
sweet spot, which I'll give you a framework for and the listeners on the call today. But what's important to note is that marketing is doing a lot of work to create brand messaging, to create a persona for the brand, a voice and a tone, and all these other things. Often the sales team might be writing sales emails without, hey, saying, hey, marketing team, what do you think about this? Are my emails giving the same value proposition that we talked about in our advertising? Are they delivering on those promises? And so I think it's really important beyond the framework we're going to talk about that if you do have an inside or outside marketing team, to have the sales team be working with them to help craft those messages, because that's really important to make sure there's continuity, from the start of the funnel all the way through the sales process.
Why is that so critical, though? I mean, people have been saying I've
It's
been doing that for years, and I've not.
yeah. I'll tell you why it's critical for two reasons. One, a lot of salespeople are good at selling, then sometimes they're not so great at writing, right? So sometimes they could be a little too pushy, or they're coming across as here's all the features and benefits and what we do, and it's all me, 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 and it's not about here's the problem we know you have, and here's how we can help solve said problem, right? This is how we've done it for other clients. So it's not so much about that they are doing things completely unethically. It's just the framework for how they're going about writing those emails isn't maybe how a marketer would go about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think there's the you know the so obviously we need to put some I need to put some contrarian in it, because that's what
Yeah.
makes this episode so great, right? The listener that's out there. But go back to this idea then. How does this stifle my individuality as the seller, and is it the top down where marketing is telling me what to write? I'm making sense on that.
Yeah, no, I don't think it does. I mean, obviously, you want to have the emails be personable. I mean, the last 5 years is all about personalization, being truthful,
Yeah.
being yourself, creating human connection, right? And with the generation, which is a whole another podcast about AI and AI creating content, which really can shift that kind of personal feel. So, no, you definitely want to be authentic. But the point that I'm trying to make is that marketing is doing a job at trying to get those leads for the salespeople, right? And they're getting those leads based on typically a set of promises or things that they could expect, right? So it might be like, hey, sign up for a demo. This is what the demo is going to be all about. But then if the salesperson is saying, hey, when can I send you a proposal? I just want to send you a proposal. And they're skipping like the demo piece. Well, that's really important. That's what they're expecting, right? So that's what I'm talking about, the alignment, just making sure that the goals, right, that the buyer has of what they're hoping to achieve and to see is going to be delivered to, by the salesperson. Um,
Okay.
yeah, that's all it is.
So let's go to that framework then. How did you
Sure.
guys come about this framework? I mean, this didn't happen by accident. I'm sure there's something that happened, and I
Yeah.
would love to see that framework and what some of those best practices that we can adopt.
Yeah. So there's a couple of factors. So one is you have to, as a salesperson, we're both salespeople. I don't say any, but most sales programs will say, don't stop trying until you get a no, right? And so a lot of salespeople will kind of give up too early, right, in the sales process, and they don't stick with it. Why don't they stick with it? Because they got a thousand other things to do, right? They got calls to follow up. They got hand raisers that are saying, hey, Donald, this sounds interesting. I want a demo. I want a proposal, et cetera, et cetera. So they're ignoring the people because they just don't have the time that weren't ready to jump to that next level conversation. So the first part of the framework is to be consistent, right? So typically what we do for our clients, and again, this might change depending upon the nature of a business, but every 2 weeks, there should be some type of touch point every 2 weeks. And the importance of that cycle is so that you're staying top of mind, but it's not being a little too pushy. And so the framework is really simple. The first email, and I'm going to kind of go through these kind of buckets right here, is about a handful of them, is
Okay.
sending out a short intro about the company. But that intro also has to include the problem you think that they have and how you can solve that problem. Okay.
And
And
this
it's
is
not as
make sure this is for a cold outreach at this point.
This will be for a cold outreach. Yes, this
Yeah.
is the, we're going to talk about cold outreach first, and we'll kind of jump into a little bit more because the warm leads is a little bit easier kind of with that
Yeah.
framework. But the reality is so many people are doing the cold outreach, and I would even consider a cold outreach as somebody downloading, a white paper or a gated piece of content or sign up for a newsletter because there's no conversation yet, right? So they're super at the high end of the funnel, the top of the funnel. So that introduction, by the way, should not ask for, hey, when can we get on a call? When do you want to do a demo? Like that's not the purpose of that email. All right. The other thing to think about is your subject lines as I go through this framework. Typically, we'd like to see subject lines, 2 to 5 words at max, and when appropriate, customizing and personalizing those subject messages with either the person's first name or the company name. So, for an example, would be, this is how we've helped other companies like blah blah blah, right? Company name in the subject message. Or for us, it might be something like CRM insights that can help Cultivize in your sales processing for 2024, right, or whatever it might be. Just to give some quick examples, right? So that's the intro.
So
The next,
how do you?
go ahead.
Is that the subject line? Because that one was a little bit long there. Or was that the
That was
first
a
part
little
of
bit
that
long. I was
email?
just going through a few different ones at the same
Gotcha,
time.
gotcha.
But yes, but the idea being, to somehow weave that in there where it feels natural.
Yeah.
The second one, which is really important, is some type of case study or proof that what you said in your first email, you've actually done. So that could be a case study. It could be testimonials on your website. It could be maybe your video testimonials, a research paper, something that shows that what you are selling, you've actually done for others. Okay. Again, short email, 75 words if you can. That's that kind of the golden number there. Again, we're not asking for, hey, would you like to get on a call? It's just here's some information, right? The whole point of this is educating them, right? Because they're still at the top of the funnel. Third email, that's the shortest one, right? So far. Did you see my case study, right? That's a follow up. I sent you some information 2 weeks ago confirming you received that information. Okay.
I love that.
All right. The next one is almost kind of like a reintroduction. So it's saying something a little bit different about what you do and the problems you solve as a company for said prospect. All right. So it's not a repeat of the first email, but the chances are they may not have seen maybe a couple of those emails. You and I both know we get tons of emails. We don't open all of them. So it's okay to be a little repetitive, but you want to have a different subject message and something a little bit unique about that re-intro. Now, keeping in mind that hopefully you know who you're reaching out to and what their problem is, you'll hopefully have some resources that you can share with them beyond just linking them to your website. So for me, an article I love is in the Harvard Business Journal that says that 75% of businesses will fail at implementing their CRM. And here's why. So it's me sharing an article and saying, hey, I know you're in the CRM research phase. It's an important decision, right? There's a lot of nuances involved. Here's an article that this publication, which is a well-known publication, published. And I thought you might find it interesting. So now it's not me saying, hey, look at us. This is a known fact. Like other people are having this problem, and here's a credible resource that's talking about this problem. So that's, again, educating, right? Informing them about that process that they're going through. Then guess what is next? It's the follow-up to the article. Hey, I sent you something I thought you might find interesting a couple of weeks ago. I'm just making sure you saw that because I think it would be important as you're, particularly at this stage in your process. And then the cycle just continues, right? So it goes through these stages where you're giving them something of value, and then you're following up on what you gave them. I typically run these for 16 weeks, Donald, or 16 emails, I should say, rather, right? Go ahead.
With the cadence of 2 per week.
2 per week, yes. Yeah. So it would go 2 per week with a total of 16 emails. And then at that point, and hopefully, you have some type of CRM system that is tracking all of these emails. That's telling you who's opening the email, who's clicking on a link to go to the website. Because then you can start using either, if you have in your CRM, something called lead scoring, which is just a simple mathematical way to give points to people based on behavior-based actions, right? They visit a page, they open an email, they click an email, they get points. So if your CRM system can give you that level of detail and you have that toolbox, right, as a salesperson, that should be your go-to, right? You might be emailing hundreds of thousands of people onto this cold email workflow, but what you want to pay attention to, who are the top 5%ers that are really engaged that aren't calling yet? Because again, we're both in sales, right, Donald? And I know a lot of
Yeah.
people listening are in sales. You walk into a department store or into a car showroom. There's a difference of walking into an environment, in a retail environment, and just looking around versus being like, let me get behind that wheel. Let me feel how that feels, right? Or, hey, can I take that for a test drive? There's all these different signals that are giving cues to the salesperson that you actually might be ready to make a purchase. CRM data can do the exact same thing if you have that ability to see that information.
Yeah. I love it. So far, we'll go back to this cadence and this idea.
Yeah.
We're making our email 75 words or less. We're
Mm-hmm.
focusing our emails on this pattern. So the case study, and this is where I think where you answer this question about, we are not changing or stifling your creativity as a seller. We're giving you the principles and the framework, but you can use this, but you can use, whatever language you want to use in there per se that ties in with the brand language. So the case study is what marketing has created. But it's, so I think that still allows for that unified process across the whole organization, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And one area too, I want to make sure, if you're a salesperson in your organization, your company does not have lead scoring, obviously you're probably thinking, how in the world are we going to do that? Make sure you connect with your marketing folks, but I'm sure you can hit up Jason as well, and he can give you some insights on that. But you got to make sure that some of these things that may be out of your control, bring this episode back to leadership and have them understand this component. Sorry, keep going there, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, a salesperson is trying to sell. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to teach here, and the things we invoke and provide to our clients, is making the sales team work smarter, not harder, right? So if they have to make 50 calls a day, well, why not tell them these are the 50 people that are most likely to answer the phone and get on a call with you, versus just randomly deciding who you're going to call that day, right? So that's really what we're talking about. And yes, if you don't have those tools, there are ways to kind of ease into that. But definitely your suggestion, Don, I'll bring it up to management to say, hey, like, I heard this podcast and these things I think could really be a differentiator, not just for me, but for the whole sales team. And why wouldn't you want to invest in your sales team to get more ROI out of your marketing efforts, right? To get them to see that result. The one thing I do want to make sure before we kind of move on to continue this conversation, in these emails we talked about the framework. What you have to understand, and this is again different by different industry, but some industries have a lot of protection around their email servers. They're scanning every email that comes in, looking for malware, for other malicious activity. So if your email has a lot of links in it, that's going to get flagged right away. So the framework is also to follow that you should really only have one, maybe two maximum links in each of these emails. So the idea of having, hey, here's all a book I wrote, and here's all our social media profiles, and all these other things in my signature, that's like 52 links. Like, you got to delete all of that, right? Because it's just not. It's going to definitely influence the ability to get into the inbox. So think about that. There's no reason to say, hey, check out our website when your signature already has the website there, right? People aren't, they're smart. If they want to find your website, they'll find it.
So go back to this idea. When we talk about the website, we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the email signature, the domain. This is one thing that I hear as well, and we've
Yeah.
practiced it. Is it best? Do you recommend to your clients to have a subdomain or a separate prospecting domain?
It's a great question. So I think it really depends upon the volume of what you're going to be doing, in terms of if you're going to be doing the cold emailing and through what system. If you're going to do this through some type of automated platform and you're not going to be manually pushing send on each individual email, then you definitely want to have some other domain besides the primary domain. Ideally, it should be something close. .co is typically available for a lot of businesses, instead of the .com that they have, or .io or something like that. But yes, you have to understand, well, the listeners should understand that domain the quality of your domain name is a big deal, right? Because if you get blacklisted or be seen as a spammer, it's going to affect not only what you're doing, it's going to affect the whole company. And it's also going to affect all the marketing effort that's being done too. So that's definitely something to consider.
Love it. Just made a little note, and we'll put that all in our show notes so folks can get access to that, to really focus on that. Can you give us an example now of maybe how you guys implemented this process and the results that you all saw as a result of your efforts?
Sure. Well, so right now I can tell you that we've been using the practice here at Cultivize for I'd say about 6-7 months right now, and what we've noticed is that the engagement, even though we're giving the one link or the two links to the website, has significantly increased because we're being so precise in that messaging. And what it's also allowed us to do is when we get on that phone call. So one thing I didn't mention is that supplemented to this framework for the email, you have to be doing other things besides email, right? So you can't be shy of picking up the phone, every few weeks, calling. Maybe you will leave a few voicemails, letting them know you're going to be calling back in a week, I think is also important so they know that you're going to be calling back. You mentioned before about text messaging. I think that if you have had at least one conversation with somebody in the business world, personally, I think text messaging is being completely underutilized. I've been very successful in booking demos, scheduling meetings with people on text. Everybody's busy. And so if they know you, they always have their phone in front of them. They're going to most likely respond a lot quicker on that text message. And I know you're huge on LinkedIn, Donald. So that's another great tool in the B2B world. Every time I have a cold person we're reaching out to that has started to show, I say starting to raise their hand is the language I use. I send them an invite on LinkedIn. Hey, Donald, I've sent you a few emails, recently, and I'm just following up. I wanted to personally introduce myself and connect here on LinkedIn, as you say, permission to connect, right?
Good
And
job.
so that's, see, I'm a listener, I know. I know your secrets too.
Dang it, he knows everything now.
But when you do that though, and then you start using these other channels, like even today, there's somebody that I've been prospecting, and I was actually on another podcast that I thought that person might find interesting, so I tagged them in a comment on that. Hey, I don't know if you've heard of this podcast. There's me promoting the podcast, right? Just like what I do, I'll do for you as well. But I thought you might like the show, and I tagged them on it. So they've never spoken to me yet, but I'm again trying to bring them into my world, right? Which I think is extremely important.
Love it. I know we're coming up on a time here. So just to recap, we understand that the magic keywords, the magic number is 75 words. And I have one question before we go on that. 2, we understand the framework of what we're going to do. And if you want the framework, you can find all of it down in the show notes. We're going to have Jason's contact details there as well. 3, reduce the number of links that you're going to have in that. And 4, make sure it's unified across your organization. Marketing leaders, sales leaders need to be engaged on this framework. So you can push them to this episode if so. Now, the last component before we jump is go back to this idea of ensuring that the framework happens 75 words. How do you ensure that you stay within that parameter? Do you use like a word counting tool? Do you use ChatGPT to help you to condense it? I know brevity sometimes is harder, but how do you, what's your ideas or your thoughts on that?
So so I would definitely recommend using like, Microsoft Word or Google Doc or whatever you use, something to have all of your emails in one, not maybe one page, but in one document. So you can visually see how they're kind of stacking up and comparing to each other. So that's really important. Yes, you can do the word count in a tool like that. I've used ChatGPT before where maybe something's a little more long-winded. And I say, okay, like, can you please condense this down to this many words or come up with some other suggestions? The one thing about ChatGPT and any AI that I've ever used, it's very rare I'm going to use something right that it gives me, but it helps kind of just tweak things a little bit to be like, okay, I like this, but let me change this word or that word because this is not, I would say, this, but I would actually say something else.
Yeah. Love it. Well, this is great. Jason, if folks want to get in touch with you to learn more about this framework or more about what you guys are doing, what's the best place for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, the best place and the easiest place is go to afterthelead.com. It has all of our information there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn from that page. It has a download to our lead nurturing playbook, which is a 14-page playbook on how to actually nurture leads. We talk about some of the things we talked about today in that playbook. That's a free download. And really, we just love the opportunity to be there and be available. I'm all about education, as hopefully it came across today. So anytime anybody reaches out to me, Donald, any of your listeners, it's not going to be a sales call. It's going to be, hey, what's going on? What's the problem? And seeing if I can provide some value.
Well, we love it, man. Jason, we'll put your LinkedIn stuff here as well. So he's definitely a good resource, and I highly recommend it. Thank you for coming on the show today and for sharing this insight with us.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey, I told you 75. I'm going to go ahead and test this. Jason said 75, so I'm going to try 75. You try 75. Let him know on LinkedIn that you're going to test this process out. You can find all of his detail down below in the show notes, as well as you can find that framework there as well. Again, as always, we want you to thrive and we want you to succeed. We want you to be able to do the best that you can and to thrive. I feel like we're in the army. Do the best you can. Be all you can be. I really want you to thrive and to succeed. I really want you to close deals, and I want you to improve your pipeline. And if you would love to give any feedback to us about the show, you can find our information down below. Our sponsors there as well, and they're giving you some deals, some good deals, man. Check it out. Take advantage of all that stuff. As always, and our mastermind. I'm not sure if any of you heard about that, but our new mastermind is beginning this summer. Would love to have you join it. It's for sales professionals, people who are not brand new sellers, but you're looking to be able to improve your sales game. Check out our mastermind. You can always go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind as well. I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise the level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.